Happy 1 year anniversary to the Eastern Shore Talk podcast. Here's to another year of helping the community one day at a time.
Happy 1 year to the Eastern Shore Talks podcast. Keep working on your mental, physical health, and keep on watching movies.
Wanted to give a shout out to Eastern Shore Talks 1 year anniversary. Congratulations. This is Marnie Stockman. I got to be on episode 11. Thanks so much. Keep on keeping on.
3.
Hello, Eastern Shore Talk podcast. Jay, Cathy, and all your guests, I just want to congratulate you on year number 1. Normalizing conversations on self-care and wellness is important work, and it can help people live their best life in the time we have. So just a big thank you to all the work you do, all the energy you put into this, and best wishes for future episodes.
Congratulations to Jay and Cathy for celebrating your 1 year anniversary with the Eastern Shore Talk podcast. Keep up the good work, and I can't wait to tune into your next episode.
Hello, Eastern Shore Talks podcast. Alicia Salisbury here from podcast number 41, where we reviewed understanding trauma, how to mitigate the effects of trauma, and we looked at gender-specific consideration with males. Wishing you a happy anniversary. From a historical perspective, I reflect back to 2014 or 2015 and somewhere around there, and your heart's goals and desires for executing a space and a platform to be able to help others. Congratulations on your anniversary and wishing you many more in the future.
Hey, Eastern Shore Talk Group. The podcast is 1 year old. My name is Courtney, and I had the opportunity to be on episode 8 and 45. I am just so excited to be a part of a much larger mission, and want to say congratulations to Cathy, to Jay. I am just so inspired by what you guys do, and just love the energy and the dedication that you have to so many self-care topics, and to just get the word out to talk about hard things. Great job, you guys. I can't wait to see what another year looks like.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Eastern Shore Talk, your podcast for all things self-care movies. If this is your first time joining us, we're glad to have you. We are on episode 54. I'm Jay Watson.
And I'm Cathy Castle.
And not only is this episode 54, but it's actually our official 1 year anniversary of the Eastern Shore Talk podcast. We're technically a year. There's no noise.
There's no noise. And I would hit you in the head with this if you were.
We're technically a year and 2 days old, because it was March 16th of last year when I did the very first premiere episode by myself, audio only, on Spotify. So yeah, it's
Telling your
a pretty
story.
big deal. As I've talked about before, only 11% of podcasts make it to 50 or more episodes, so that's pretty cool. I go back, Cathy, and I have the advantage of I listen to the podcast as I'm editing it, because I see the little magic clip, so I get to hear back as I'm editing, just automatically. Mm-hmm. Not the whole episode, but I go back, especially to the early ones. And so for anybody that's new to listening or watching our podcast, when I first started, it was literally me by myself talking to my phone.
So for the record, I did not ditch Jay for the first episode. He chose to do the first one.
I was too embarrassed to invite Cathy at that point, because I wanted to make sure I had my stuff together at least a little bit before.
I don't want people to think I'm a bad friend.
So and I go back and I listen to that, Cathy, and with like one of the first sentences I say is, "You guys have to bear with me because I'm really nervous." And I recommend anybody who's going to start a podcast
not to listen to our first one.
well, actually, listen to it to see what not to do.
Now, I remember, do you know which episode we went to video?
Episode 9.
Don't watch that one either. But I remember when you're like, let's go video. And I'm like, oh, no. I was scared, the word. I don't know. I'm like, my nose is going to itch. My forehead's going to shine. It probably still is shining and my nose is still itching. But, yeah, but then it got a lot easier. But shoot, those first ones were nervous.
So the first 2 episodes I did by myself, and I would literally wrote notes.
Yeah.
And they're only like 25 minutes long.
But it was easy. It was easy then because it didn't say our face, so you can write notes and read it.
It's not easy when you're by yourself, though. That is extreme. I would tell people if they want to start a podcast, don't do it by yourself. Have somebody to talk to. If you just do audio, at least that's way easier. So I did the first 2 by myself, and I remember on the first episode, you can hear my phone go off in the background because I forgot to put my phone on mute. And
okay, so what's different from now when we hear the sirens going off that go by your house?
Well, I can't control that. I could control. I just forgot to do my phone thing.
Yeah, how rude of the ambulances.
But so then Cathy came on episode 3, and we were still just audio. Our first 8 episodes were just Cathy and I, audio only. Just
look, I was like this with my. I had my little like speaker thing out of my iPhone. I thought I was hot stuff.
Yeah, I bought a little thing so that I could just leave my phone sitting there. I didn't have to hold it.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards. And even when we went in episode 9, we went to video for the first time. I hadn't learned the editing or anything in our online studio, so there's no video. There's no nice video intro like there is now. There was no music to intro us in before. It was just our faces just popped up on the screen and we started talking. And we were
then there was the audio the entire time. I'm like, we got to cut that.
Yeah, yes,
like
we had Cathy called it elevator music. There was just elevator. It was like very low music in the background because that was before Riverside existed. Spotify had its own recording studio at that point. So, and when if you go look at the first video one, you and I both are like 1 inch from the screen. Like all you see is face. That's all. It's just right here.
We backed it up a little.
We backed it up. we backed that thing up and made it look normal.
We still have our backgrounds that aren't like
are very organic backgrounds. Yeah. So yeah, it's been. I remember when I figured out how to do the whole intro and musical intro and video. I thought that was like the bee's knees. I was like, wow, I'm a editing genius.
So it's like back in the day where we had our tape recorder and you push the 2 buttons at the same time to get Casey Kasem's #1 song right at the right time.
It's funny. I go back and I watched. I listen to the ones that are just audio, especially the first one, and I laugh because it's so ridiculous. I'm just like, but it's charming though in a way because it's like. So, but because like, I don't know, maybe a week or 2 ago, I went back and I'm going to compare them. So I went back and this is the very first episode, 20-minute long, Jay Watson saying, bear with me, I'm nervous.
Your monologue.
My monologue, it was like, this is the premiere episode on Spot. I was like trying to sound all official. And then I listened to like last week's episode and I'm like, we're not nervous. We're just talking. There's cool stuff introing everything. We've got people talking about self-care before. We've got cool guests on. You were technically the first guest because I even introduced you and I say it's appropriate that Cathy is the first guest on the Eastern Shore Talk podcast, but really Liza Ledford was the first guest that came on like 1 or 2 episodes after you did, and it was just us, 3 of us talking on the phone, and Courtney came on. I want to say Liza and Courtney and
Marnie. Was it Marnie?
No, Marnie was video. One of your sons.
A kid.
Tristan was audio only.
He was audio only.
Talked about relationships.
Yeah. But we should back up and say this, that, I mean, you and I are like a partnership, although he made me a guest, not a partner in the beginning. I had to work my way into partner, but status in this corporation. But I do want people to know that this is Jay's baby. This is Jay's dream. I just show up. I just like roll in hot and show up. But Jay puts his time, his money, his time, his thoughts. This is Jay's invention. He's behind. He's editing it. I'm not doing anything. I'm showing up, y'all. I'm showing up. So yeah, there's a lot to clap for you, Jay, because you put your heart into it 150%, and I'm grateful for you with all that you do to make this happen.
Well, Cathy, it's funny, going back and kind of.
If this was a tooting horn, I'd be tooting right now, but it's not.
Seeing the kind of the evolution of the podcast, and I'm not. I call myself somebody who can get by with technology. I'm passable. Some things I'm pretty good at. Some others I don't know anything about. And I didn't. Cathy and I, neither one knew one single thing about making a podcast at all. Zero. Sure, I went on Google and I got some tips, and people said, "Hey, do this," and they said you can do it just on your phone at first. And yes, you can. You can. And if you're gonna, I would say, for the sake of trying to get your feet under you, yes, but don't do it by yourself. Find somebody that you could, whatever your content is, find somebody that you can have a conversation with, even if it's just on your phone at first, and then kind of go from there. I'm proud of myself, Cathy, because as I've talked about before, this is way, way, way outside of what I would have ever thought. Well, I've talked about that a million times. I don't want to beat that to death, but
it's worth saying because you went out of your comfort zone, and
it does take a lot of time. Not just the night that we record and the editing and releasing, but advertising the podcast literally every day in some way, shape, or form with social media. There's a lot of time involved, but I don't look at it as work. It takes my time for sure, but it's because of it, I've connected with folks that I would have like-minded people, in the self-care, wellness, and mental health world that I never would have connected with before, and I'm extremely grateful for that. We've had some really, really
made a lot of friends, right?
Some new friends, some awesome guests, and look, I've told you this before. I don't look at this as Jay's podcast at all. It like I said, if I had no other option but to do it by myself, I would not have lasted very long, because I would have been like, I can't do it by myself, because it's boring, it's difficult, and it's just you can't have as good of an in-depth conversation by yourself. You just can't. I don't know how. There are a few people out there that do podcasts by themselves. I don't know how they do it, but those people, Cathy, have a producer sitting in the room next to them. So every once in a while, they get to talk to a producer that's there. There's some other person there in some way. But my point is, you and I have kind of built what the kind of the foundation of the podcast is. Every week, we bounce ideas for topics back and forth. We've both come up with different guests. You've had some that you brought on with your connection. Same with me. So there's it doesn't, Eastern Shore Talk does not work without the two of us. Not just from that aspect, but Cathy's got 30 plus years of clinical experience in the mental health field, and I've got almost 58 years of lived experience that I use to, as my, what I bring to the table. So, and that works. And it, for some people that have known each other since kindergarten, that helps. There's, we just have a
trust,
and just,
humor.
We're comfortable talking to each other. We do little digs at each other, and it's just kind of our way. And so my point is, it doesn't work. I don't think either one of us could do it by ourselves. It would not be the same thing. So it's the two of us. It's also the guests. We've had Chris Moore on several times. And Liza Letford has been on several times. And Courtney Moore has been on multiple times. Your kids have been on multiple times. I mean, there's a list. And you just, in the intro, we just heard from a lot of those folks that have been on, some listeners like Shakia that you work with at Channel Marker. It's a regular listener. She wished just a happy anniversary. So that's pretty cool. It's been a cool thing, and we've gone from 20 or 30 listeners a week to last week we had over 1,000, almost 1,100.
That's a big difference.
We're going to do 1,000 this week.
We hope that it's helping people. We hope whoever's listening is grabbing something, That's amazing. That's a lot of people.
It's a crazy thing, Cathy, and you and I have both had this experience multiple times out in our community where someone will come up to you and say, I saw you on the podcast. People, they're not people that I know, because people that know me through social media know I'm on the podcast. So for somebody, a friend of mine, to come up to me and say, oh, I watched your podcast, that's not a big deal to me. But for someone who doesn't know me to come up to me and say, hey, did I see you on the podcast? That's cool. It's weird. It's very weird from being, recognized in that way. And it's the first time it happened to me, I'm sure I turned bright red and I wanted to crawl up in a ball. But then this person talked about what a specific episode and what they got out of it. That part I liked. I'm like, I left that place that night, after that conversation, and I was just like, it felt good that, people were taking something from what we were talking about. I don't care if I get noticed at all. I would rather not, to be honest with you, because you know me, I'd rather sit in the background and let everybody else do their thing. But to be, have a stranger come up to you and say, I listened to that episode about da 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 da, and I really got a lot out of it. I appreciate it. So,
well, I feel honored that 1,000 people choose to give us the time of day, because there's a lot of, or time of night, right? Depends on when people are listening.
And there's a lot of night timers. There's a lot of overnight, late nighters.
There's a lot of you out there that aren't sleeping. We need to talk about it.
You're using us to fall asleep too.
We're that boring. They're using us to fall asleep. There's ocean music, and there's Shay and Cathy that put you to sleep.
Let me turn that Easy Short Talk podcast on. That'll get me to sleep.
Yeah, that's
melatonin. This is better than melatonin.
Better than a pill. No, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, I did. Oh, well, I was going to say, no, I know I was going to say that I feel honored that 1,000 people want to click or listen for a bit, even if it's not the whole session, because there's a lot of choices on what to do with your time. People are busy, and then there's so many podcasts or books or articles or whatever to listen to when it comes to the topic of self-care. Self-care is certainly an industry that has expanded, especially since COVID, which now we're 5 years away from. So just the fact that people give us the time of day to hear what we have to say, because we're not here saying we're the professional self-care people, but we are here saying we care about people and we want to talk about topics in a conversation-like way, and maybe something hits home for somebody. And I've had friends say, look, I told you the other day, one of my friends said that you in particular, when she hears you, that it really hits home to her. And sometimes it can even make her feel teary and think about something that happened in her own life. And I was like, man, I think I didn't do it for her, but you did. But that's great. I was so happy to hear that kind of feedback. So people are getting something out of it, and that's the whole point. You're not alone. We're here. Let's talk about it. And if it takes 10 times to talk about the same thing before it helps you, then let's talk about it 10 times, because we're here.
Well, that's a good thing. You can go back in our library and not that I would suggest listening to the very first episode, but you can go back.
Don't listen to 1, 2, 8. Oh.
Well,
bigger numbers. Wait for the bigger numbers.
If you want an example of what not to do with doing a podcast, listen to the first few. After that, it's okay. It's passable after that.
Wait till we got into the preteen years.
Yeah, September, which would have been about 6 months in, we must have really started like
figuring it out.
We must have started fitting into the podcast world, because that's kind of when our listenership and viewership started to bump up quite a bit at that point. So,
or either that, Jay, or are you clicking every time? Are you bumping the numbers?
No, I mean, I do go again. I get to listen to the episodes as I'm editing with them. I do go back and listen to some every once in a while.
And I don't, because I don't want to hear my voice again. Sometimes I'll listen to parts of the guests, but I don't want to hear myself again.
Nobody wants to hear a question for you. You and I, and I'm going to. All right, here's the time to be honest with me. I remember when the whole Eastern Shore Talk group, when I came to you with that conversation.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about that on the podcast, where you were just like, okay, let's do it. So when I came to you with the idea for the podcast, honestly, like, what were your thoughts initially? Like when I first said, all right, Cathy, let's do a podcast.
Well, I think we joked around a bit at first about it. Like, oh man, we should have a podcast. And that idea was very intriguing to me. Like, well, that would be cool. Let's have a podcast. But then, actually, a doctor friend of mine texted me and said, I hear you're going to do a podcast. I was like, what? I'm not going to do a podcast. He's like, well, you should. And he's somebody that I respect a lot. And I really had that sitting in the back of my head. I'm like, he's been a mentor to me in a lot of ways through life. And I'm like, if maybe I should. I don't know. So it was challenging. It was something, I like a good challenge every now and then. But I was like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna do at it, because I'm not good on the screen. I'm still not good on the screen. I'm better or more comfortable, but like I'm a fidgeter and a mover. I got to work really hard not to move too much.
It's funny. I can see a difference in both of us in different ways from the beginning until now. Like, for example, you would get, like, when we first started doing video, before I'd hit record, you'd say,
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready. Hold on. Wait a minute. I got an itch. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me fix my hair. Hold on. Wait a minute. We would be 5 minutes of hold on. Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's true.
And
because I need hair and makeup, you didn't provide that on set.
And you don't do that anymore. I just say, "Are you ready?" You say, "Yep," and I hit record and we go.
Yeah, I still itch. I still have the facial itch.
I used to get super anxious and super nervous about what am I going to say for the intro? What am I going to say when we first come on?
And you got that down.
Yeah, I do now. But I was trying to run all these things through my head, and sometimes I would like fumble between two different ideas as I was doing it. And sometimes I would just forget. So I would just say, this is episode 50. I'm Jay Watson. Now, I would forget half of what I was thinking of all day.
I got to do it again. Yeah.
I'm, and literally, like right before we would log on, my heart would race, and I'd be like, "Oh."
Yeah, I had a little of that. I'm not gonna lie.
I only worry about my only anxiety now is technical difficulties outside of our control.
Because we've had those, right? We've had the technical difficulties. Like the Chris Moore episode just recently, when I'm not there, I disappeared.
Your voice is magically there, but you don't appear until 30 minutes in.
I think you pushed delete. Is what I think you did. You said, I'm going to shut her up today. Or we've had a couple bloops, but
we try to do the fake backgrounds, and that was fine for one episode, and then it messed us up the next episode.
This is a low budget production here.
So
I was ready for the backgrounds. Now I'm back to my boring, my purple background.
Maybe at some point they'll get that.
Yeah, they'll get that worked out.
Yeah, they'll get that fixed, and maybe at some point we'll have a sponsor or two, and we'll have an actual studio that we go to, and
you can dream, right? You can dream. You never know.
Cool. To have something local here that we just literally go to, and have a producer that just sits there and does all that stuff, and you and I just talk.
That'd be nice. Then we both could just show up, not just me.
And I wouldn't have to edit. I could just show up and talk and then go home and let the producer do all that.
Yeah,
That
see
would
that
be.
you're the producer, your marketing, your finance, your HR, your everything.
I don't know if I'd want anybody else to do all that though, because that's kind
Oh,
of. Although I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, whoa, man, I would like to have more time because I spend about between 15 and 20 hours a week just on the podcast.
that's that dude. That's a job right there. That I'm telling you, if you counted on me for that, this would be a once a quarter podcast. That's a
And
job.
again, I don't regret it. I enjoy it. I mean that it's all been, sunshine and roses because we've had our bumps with, like I said, technical difficulties, and there have been times where we thought we were going to talk. We tried to record the social media
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
Took us 3 times to
Oh my
record that because of
gosh.
technical difficulties, and
That was that just didn't want to happen.
good
And
thing
we're like,
good
darn
thing
it.
you had enough sons because we
Oh,
did a
right.
different son each
Yeah.
one.
Because that son number, whatever, would say, I'm not doing that again. And then I'm like, okay, contestant number 2, where are you?
So yeah, finally Jaden came on, and we finally got that one done.
I'm like, come on, somebody help me out. But it has been fun to have family members on. I had my dad on. I think Dad's ready to come back. I think I enjoyed that.
Yeah, he was. Did he have notes written down?
Um,
Because he looked like he was reading off of something.
I can't remember. I don't even remember if he did or didn't. He might have. He might have had some notes, but
Because when you introduced him, and he said he looked down and he started like all this stuff started coming out like it was scripted.
he sent us a happy anniversary that you can share
Yeah,
wherever.
we'll have to post that on social media.
Posted, but he took a picture of it. He must have set the camera up to take a picture of himself because he was out cutting wood and he wanted to
Right.
show that these retired people are busy cutting wood.
Cut logs.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, and I think that there'll always be something to talk about when it comes to people and taking care of ourselves. So I think that there's plenty of content, right?
Well, yeah, between that and movies.
Yeah.
Because we there for a while we were doing movie only episode. Well, I guess with Chris we did one recently, so
Oh, that's true.
we'll have to get Liza back and have her give us some more Steven Spielberg stories.
How about what's been? I wanted to ask you a question. What do you think's been and it could be a couple things, some of the biggest things you've realized from doing this? I mean, you came in as somebody that was very into fitness anyway, and wanting to be in a better place. You've done it all, the spiritual well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being. You've done it all. But what has surprised you after just talking about it week after week? Has there been anything?
Yeah, there's been a lot that surprised. I learned something and I take something, especially when we have guests on.
Yeah.
From every guest, and there are a few things. One thing is, this is podcast related, but it's life related for me. Is that there are more like-minded folks out there, in the self-care arena than I had ever anticipated. That's been really cool.
I agree. I agree.
And whether it's through the podcast or networking for the expo, it's just that's been really cool, and it's kind of no matter what your interests are, no matter what your passions are, to find like-minded people in your life, that share those, passions and interests or whatever. It's just a cool thing, and me being has shut down and antisocial as I had always been. Part of that was that I've always said that I almost never get lonely from a physical standpoint, meaning having the physical presence of someone with me. But there have been a lot of times in my life where I was lonely as far as I felt lonely in my values. I felt lonely in how I view the world and what I thought. And my experiences, especially through the podcast, is that that's not the case. So I feel less alone, not just from a we all struggle standpoint, and that's we've talked about that a lot, how important that is, but also from I feel less alone from there are a lot more folks out there who are like-minded with me than I ever would have thought. So that's been good. And a more specific thing is, and I don't remember which guest it was, and we've had multiple guests say this. Even as a personal trainer, I never realized how much that we carry stresses and anxieties and all those things that we think are mental or psychological issues in our physical body. We carry them. We carry those stresses in our body.
That might have been your friend Ann.
Maybe it was a while back, but there have been multiple guests who have referred to that. Courtney was one.
Yeah.
Colin Perry was one that talked about that.
Janice probably.
So yeah, those are a couple. I've learned a lot about the movie industry. And look, I love movies, but just from that segment of the podcast, from both Liza and Chris,
Oh yeah,
behind the scenes things that if you don't work in movies, you would never know. So that's been cool. There's been a lot of things that I've kind of.
Well, I mean, just to kind of highlight on what you said about, there's a lot of people out there kind of like-minded doing some things around mind, body, soul. It's just it's just wonderful to see that people are taking their struggles and they're really trying to do something with them positive and sharing and helping other people. And because at the end of the day, isn't that what we should be doing, is wrapping our hands, even if they're virtually like we are right now, around somebody else and lifting them up, because there's enough out there to knock people down. So, if somebody's dealing with grief or somebody's, any struggle, trauma of any sort, there's somebody out there that's like, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried acupuncture? Have you tried, different ways to get to sleep? Have you tried different things to eat, or different things, routines at night? Or have you tried, to get out in nature? Everybody has had so many good things to share and tips. But I would say another thing that I realized, besides all these wonderful network of people out there, is if you don't practice it, you're not going to keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it is still a practice to take care of yourself. I mean, maybe that sounds silly, but it's easy to fall off the wagon with self-care and lose it to busyness.
Now that part, Cathy,
somebody like you is more disciplined, but somebody like me, which is not as disciplined, that's coming in with my hair on fire, Mach 10. I have to really pull myself down and slow it down and remember to practice what I preach. Practice.
But where that comes from with me, Cathy, is the personal trainer side of me, because
maybe
with exercise, like if you're a regular gym goer and then all of a sudden, let's just say something happens and you have to stop going, or you choose to stop going for a while, the longer you lay off from going to the gym, the harder it is to get back to going again.
Yeah.
So that consistency, it perpetuates on itself, and the more you go, the less you have to motivate yourself to go.
But I mean, anything when you stop is hard to start. It not just like, whether it's exercising or walking, which is exercising, or even eating well. We'll all, as people, as humans, we'll go on fads where we're like, oh, I'm gonna eat better. But then there's that big old cookie that's coming, or a piece of cake. And, it's easy to fall off the wagon with taking care of yourself, and not to shame yourself if you stop doing some kind of a good habit for yourself, but to get back up and to restart it in some way, and in some way that makes you feel good, or that you have interest in. I think you said that to me a long time ago, Jay. Like, what do people have interest in? That's an important thing, not just.
Don't ask them what they're doing for self-care. Ask them what they're interested in.
What your interest is. I thought that was a thing you taught me. I didn't think of it that way. Right? And yeah.
I was going to say something. I totally lost my train of thought completely.
And just how the whole mind, body, and spiritual self are all so connected.
I think for me, Cathy, it was not only was um, growing my relationship with the Lord kind of the what built the foundation for my getting to a better place, but it also is a you know it kind of is a reminder motivator for me to continue doing consistent self-care because it's all kind of one memory for me. um, I'm very well aware of where I was from a child till until let's just say 40 years old. um, and and God's grace and God's purpose for me now, you know, kind of overshadows that, but it also kind of how can I describe this? It lets me where I am because of God's grace reminds me of where how much work I've done, and my self care is second behind my relationship with God as far as what got me to where I am now. I know my self care from a logistical standpoint is the biggest contributor to where I am. My belief in God is the faith side of it, but the logistical everyday boots on the ground part was self care that got me to this point. So it got me here, and I've always been. I've never had trouble motivating myself to go to the gym ever. There was a 7 year period a while back, Cathy, where I did not miss a workout at all for 7 straight years.
Like 7 days a week?
No.
Oh.
Whatever my workout, let's just say I was used to going 4 days a week. For 7 years, I went 4 days a week. Didn't matter if I was sick, whatever, I went. Now that's changed, and I've changed, what I do and all that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, so I knew how much, because I discovered later in life that I got a lot more mental health benefits from going to the gym than I did physical benefits. And I knew that. So I'm like, why would I turn that spigot off? So I'm like, at one point I was the gym was literally getting me by every day mentally before I really did my self-discovery and the internal work. The gym was what got me by every day mentally those days. So it's been easier for me in that aspect because I kind of equate it to that, where self-care, especially with the mental and spiritual or soul side of the three, got me to where I am, which is a much better place than I've ever been. I know that. Again, why would I turn that spigot off? Sometimes stuff happens. You get sick, whatever. You can't go to the gym, and that happens to me now. I haven't gone 7 years again.
Happens to me every day.
You went 7 straight years without going to the gym one day.
If I walked into the gym, lightning may strike.
Would you burst into flames if you walked into a gym?
I'm pretty sure I would. My gym is nature. It is not the gym. It might be Slim Jim. I don't know, but yeah, it's not my cup of tea. Okay?
So let me ask you this. So was there a point along this journey of the podcast where you thought, okay, or either A, you just started to really feel comfortable, or B, you're like, okay, this is becoming something?
Yeah, I think so, but I can't tell you. I can't necessarily. I can't really say it was an episode. I feel like it was like this ball rolling down a hill that just kept getting bigger. Like, it's not just, hey, let me show up and talk about topic A. It was more like, hey, this is not only this topic we're talking about, but this is helping me, and we've talked about this is helping me be really regular in revisiting self-care and how it applies to me. And I, like you, I learn stuff all the time because, I mean, as humans, we're just bad students, right? We say stuff, but doesn't mean we're going to do it. So it helps keep me in check. and I started to feel more confident about it. You know, we were able to kind of I think you and I both could kind of feed into the vision of it, of like, this could be endless, like the amount of things you can talk about. It's not just like, oh, we've talked about these 50 things, there's nothing else left to talk about, because you can recreate it or you can take a piece of something. So it just became much more natural, but I don't know when that happened necessarily. But yeah.
You know, it's funny. I've said this before, and I don't know. I think maybe because of the topic, it was a combination of the guest and the topic. But when we had Moni Stockman on,
Yeah, that's true, right?
and because we talked about Ted Lasso,
And we both love
and
Ted Lasso.
it just felt like, not just because of what Marnie brought as a guest, but the topic of Ted Lasso is so front and center in pop culture, and like, how many people have not seen and or love Ted Lasso? So it felt like what I envisioned a popular pop culture podcast would sound like, talking about, because that's such a very popular topic, you know, because we don't necessarily get much into pop culture itself. We'll talk about specific shows or movies or whatever,
Yeah.
but that's just kind of, yeah. So
We
there
need to
was
have her back.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we got done and I texted you right after. I said that one just felt more official, and that's the only word I could think of. It just because of Marnie was such a great guest. She's local, and she wrote a book about what I mean. Ted Lasso is my favorite TV show series of all time, like easily. So, and she wrote a book about this and how she incorporates it into how she teaches leadership.
Lead it like Lasso, right?
Lead it like Lasso. Yep. Um, and they just signed on to do season 4
of Ted Lasso.
Yep, of Ted Lasso. So I'm sure she's, along with all the rest of us, are tickled about that. So yeah, it was something about that episode. You know, I always get really excited about when Chris Moore comes on. I mean, it's kind of cool that, you know, he's a friend of ours, and you know, he's got Hollywood stories, and but you know, he doesn't.
He's loyal. He's a loyal fan.
Yeah, he's loyal, but he's just a regular
he's
dude.
Just a guy.
He's just a guy, and you know, he's an Easton native, and he has, you know, experiences and information that are cool and interesting, because you and I both love movies, and so we're always, you know, that's always cool, and I'm sure he'll be back, and I'm sure Eliza will be back.
And I'd like to talk in with our girls about grief. You know, Courtney Moore,
Janice
Ware. I mean, those are people that really have put a lot of time into the meaning of grief, and how people can just be better, and they can be well from the experience of grief, and that's certainly a universal topic, grief. So there's probably more that we could talk with those ladies, especially, you know, it's time to bring Courtney back probably again soon.
So yeah, Janice brought us the grief recovery method, and Courtney brought us the Good Grief Collective.
Although Courtney also does the grief recovery method as well. They both do it. Yeah.
Very cool.
So, yeah. And Courtney's trying to develop her space with the Good Grief Collective. Check it out. If not, if you haven't,
it's basically just kind of like a community for folks to just talk and chat and get ideas, and you know, that kind of thing. It's really cool.
It's fun to see people's passion, right? There's so many people out there with such great passion to help others, and you know, in a world that's a little dark, that it's nice to see those light bulbs everywhere of people trying to help others. And being vulnerable and showing their side of the trauma that they've gone through in order to help somebody else. Because that's not easy to put yourself on display and tell your story. You know, Vance came on and talked about, you know, his struggles after, you know, a change in the police force, and his relationship with alcohol, you know, we've had a lot of people that have shared your stories. You've shared your own story.
Yeah, that might be my favorite part of doing the podcast, Kathy, is what we call self-care testimonials, where folks have gone
Yeah.
through whatever struggle they've gone through, and they'll share their story, and then they'll talk about the things with self-care that they're doing to help navigate those events, whatever they were, whether they were a long time ago or whether they're still currently kind of in the middle of it. We've had several guests talk about that in some way, shape, or form.
Because, at the end of the day, somebody may not choose to tell their story, and we understand that. People have to be comfortable. But people have had a lot of things happen to them, and you either are going to be stuck or you're going to have to figure a way out of it. And, a lot of what I'm thinking about Linda Booz that came on, she lost her son to suicide, and she came on and was talking about the multitude of ways she's had to look at self-care to help guide her in this journey, with a life without her son, without Christopher. But, maybe there are people out there that think it's just that they have the misinformation that if I do this, I'm going to feel better. And then they do that and they don't feel better. So they just give up, And so I think it's great that people are willing to share that there's a lot of different things you can try.
Well, Linda shared with us that she got a lot out of acupuncture, and she would have never thought that she would have. And then we had Dr. Kendra Jones come on, who does acupuncture. You and I learned a ton because we didn't know anything.
Yeah. Like I'm still hung up on that. She said that you can get people with substance use disorder can get acupuncture on their ear and help them with some of those issues. I'm like, man, this
infertility.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty amazing to me. And her episode on YouTube, Kathy, is our most watched episode.
Wow, that surprised me. Yeah, so other people maybe were interested.
So maybe it's cool that folks are like, "Hey, wait a minute, let me hear about what this acupuncture is all about, and let me see if it's something that I could." Because again, Linda came on and said, I asked her directly, "Hey, was there anything that surprised you?" She said, "Yep, acupuncture. I would have never expected it." She said, "It's been a big help." So,
and then people talking about Reiki. Colin Perry has talked about Reiki. Janice talked about Reiki. Yep. Vance talking about yoga. Courtney talking about yoga. Yoga is a big deal for people. That is a big healer for lots of people. I mean, there's just a lot out there to choose from, and that's just really healing.
Got lots more good stuff coming.
Yeah, we wonder what we'll say here.
We have some really good, just some good self-care testimonials coming up. Just lots of good guests. We're one of the cool things about as we've evolved with the podcast is the network of possible guests has really blossomed. Some of which now are introducing themselves to you or I, one or the other, people that we may not necessarily know, and I think that's cool. And anybody who would want to come on and say, "I went through X, Y, and Z, and here are the things that I have had to do to help navigate that," I'm all for anybody that does that. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of Channel Marker or not. That it's the story and what you can do with the story. Because I've said a million times, our story is our superpower. That's always really cool. We've got some very diverse and really cool guests coming up. Year 2 will kind of officially begin next week on next week's episode. Is that
we got a ton of guests for April?
Is that Katie Dilley next week?
She's April. No, the 25th. Is that is it?
Hold on. No, next week's open. Next week was supposed to be somebody that they. No, we were thinking about possibly doing sleep next week. Remember?
Yeah.
So we might do that.
Yeah, because I've been studying up.
So anyway, here's Cathy. I'm going to say it again. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I don't honestly, I mean this sincerely. for many reasons. I don't think that this works. I don't think that I could have done this with anybody else and have it turn out to be what it's been if it wasn't that you as my co-host on the show. Honestly, I mean that completely sincere for so many reasons. That we've known each other for a long time. We're comfortable together. We have two different, approaches to what we do. It just has worked, and I thank you a million times over. Not only for being my co-host, but for being my friend, which makes being the co-host that much better. So we're going to start.
Well, I appreciate
year
you,
two.
and I appreciate you believing in me to help you help other people, and it's fun. It's fun.
It is mostly, except when we have technical difficulties. It's
behind the scenes stuff, right? Is maybe not as fun all the time, but
So real quick before we get out of here,
yeah.
what have you been watching lately?
So I watched Moana 2
Okay,
on with the kids, some of the kids' girlfriends. Did you see it?
I saw Moana 2. I did not see the first one.
Well, apparently I forgot what happened in the first one because I'm like, this is why Jay would not want me at the movies. I was asking all these questions to these girls, and I'm just like, wow, I am that annoying person. I said, but it's only because I forgot what the first one was about. So don't invite me to a movie that had something before it. Don't invite me to a sequel. Maybe that's it.
But at least if you're streaming, you can stop it and say, okay, can I ask some questions and then restart?
That's not what happened. But I thought it was cute, and the graphics were amazing. I thought, right? We watched Moana. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've watched. I don't think so. I am super, super duper, super duper excited about Ted Lasso season 4. And I can tell you, I found something I want to see.
And apparently, he's going to coach a women's soccer team.
Yeah,
that's the gist of the series.
We gotta get Marnie. She's gotta have details somewhere.
Yeah.
And then of course Stranger Things is gonna be coming out in the fall. I'm not gonna be able to handle that because I love Stranger Things. And we got our Murders 5. They're taping, so we got a lot of good stuff coming up. But there's one thing I found, Jay, that I want to look at. And I forgot the name of it, but it's a Netflix documentary, and I saw it in a news article about the blue zone areas. I don't know if I've talked about the blue zones before. I've listened to
atmosphere.
No, it's about areas in like, I can't even think. There might be 1 or 2 blue zones in the United States, but there's in other countries where there are areas where people live to be 100.
Oh.
And it's by doing certain things, and it's not rocket science. It's like, oh, they have a strong faith. They don't eat ultra processed foods. They, family and community is humongous. They walk to a lot of things. It's a lot of self-care, we would probably call kind of things, but they adopt that as their community, as their belief systems. And I remember listening to a podcast that one of the designated blue zones was at risk of losing its designation. And one of the things they found was there's a lot of American fast food places, encroaching in on that blue zone area. But anyway, apparently there's a documentary about it, but I got to find the name of it. But it is about the blue zone areas of the world and how people live to be 100. I don't know if that's something that interests you, but I want to know what the secret sauce is. And maybe it's because there's no secret sauce.
Yeah. I started watching
I gotta find the name of it.
A series on, I don't know, I forget. It's either on Netflix or Prime, but it's called Ends of the Earth, and this is part 3, and it's very it's about like the history of religions in the world. I started watching season 3, and I'm so fascinated by And this guy's like literally traveling around all these historic places.
I did find them, by the way.
I didn't realize how huge what we call now Turkey, and what is the city of Istanbul, used to be Constantinople, how gigantic that was for the creation of Christianity.
Wait, was it?
According to this one, it was. Like right after the passing of Jesus, like the first, like 500 years or 1,000 years right after, like it was Constantinople until it got invaded, and then the Islamic invaders renamed it Istanbul, but it used to be called Constantinople, and it was gigantic.
Well, that was in one of our history classes at somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I mean, like,
I wouldn't know
Jerusalem, all these other places. Yes, we hear about all that, but Turkey.
Wow.
Like,
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was
I did find the name of this. It is on Netflix. Yeah, that's what we get. We get our Netflix on Netflix. Oh my gosh. It's called Live to 100: Secrets of the Blue Zones. Blue zones are designated areas. Takes members around the world to investigate the diet and lifestyles of those living the longest lives in the world. So I'm going to check it out. I think it's just one thing. It's a documentary. Yeah.
I went and saw this past Friday Novocaine.
Oh, that's right. You did. You said that wasn't so bad, huh?
Jack Quaid. It was actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Quaid is Dennis Quaid's son. And it's so funny. He does look like him, but in this movie, there are specific scenes when he smiles, he looks exactly like his father.
Oh,
Jack
really?
Quaid and Meg Ryan's son.
Yeah. I forgot that.
He was in The Boys, and he was also in a movie I saw.
Is she still with him?
I don't know. He was also in a movie about the robot I saw just not too long ago called Companion. But this was there's a lot of gore, a lot of like violence, but
you're not selling it, Jay, for me.
It's kind of it's a combination of I'm thinking of something else. But anyway, it's got some really like light comedy. It's not like too serious of a like shoot 'em up kind of thing.
Yeah.
He plays a guy who has this condition, the genetic condition, where he doesn't feel any pain. Like he can break a bone or he can have all these things happen to him, but he just doesn't feel any pain from it. So he can die. He's not
scary.
He's not immune to being killed. He just doesn't feel any pain. But it's dangerous because like he'll say, so I can't eat solid food because I could like swallow my tongue and not realize it because, so there's all these things that he's like, I have a set alarm to go to the bathroom because if I don't pee, my bladder could explode because I wouldn't feel the discomfort and pain from my bladder getting too full. So there's all that. And then, it's kind of like spy, shoot 'em up kind of thing ensues, and he tries to become his character in this one is very similar in a lot of ways to his character Huey in The Boys. So I enjoyed it. It was actually a little bit better than I thought it was going to be.
What are you going to do next week?
Snow White is this coming from?
Because I wouldn't mind seeing Snow White.
It's on 2 screens, so they're expecting it, but there not many tickets have been sold so far.
Oh yeah.
But it's on 2 screens, so.
Because I want to go to the movies. I haven't been to the movies in a while. I'm missing the movies, but I have 4 free tickets on my card. But you can't. But I can never use them because whenever there's a new movie, you can't use the freebie.
Yeah, Sony. There's certain studios.
Disney.
You can't use them for those.
I was like, dangers.
Starting from here on out, there's some good ones each week that are coming out. It's getting to be
season
like prime movie. They're starting to ripen. Those movies are starting to ripen. You can start picking them here shortly.
I can start picking. I like that. Yeah, February is a dud month, right? February.
Now there's quite. It's like there'll be a run from here through the whole year, basically.
Nice. We got to get Jay's top list of don't miss out on.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right, guys. So we're glad you joined us to help celebrate our 1 year anniversary of Eastern Shore Talk. We hope you catch us next time, and we'll see you later. Take care, guys.